your takeaway / our sort of headline on Wednesday's OTA was that although Drake Maye didn't throw interceptions like he did the week prior, he did sort of, I don't want to say take a step back, but he wasn't great. Like there was kind of poor execution across the board from the offense. So I'm curious, high level quarterback position as well as the offense, kind of what you saw on Wednesday, but then also what you're looking for them to continue to improve as we head into Monday's final OTA session.
Always want to start these with the grain of salt that it is so early in the offseason. You know, there's not a whole lot of these storylines I think we're even going to look back on by the end of the summer and think that they were relevant. So like with Drake Maye, we've talked about it. There's been some inaccuracy that you really don't want to see. The last practice we were at, it was specifically from some tight pockets when he was throwing over the middle and they sailed on him. And it wasn't just that practice. We actually saw it the week before where he got intercepted by, I believe it was Del Pettis, where he had a throw that just went right over his receiver's head. And as a guy who thrives throwing over the middle, that was just something that I thought was kind of discouraging. But at the same time, you saw the aggressiveness. There were a lot of throws, especially on that first OTA that we saw, where he was putting deep balls where they needed to be, and his receivers just weren't really coming up with it. Then last practice, it felt more like when he tried to go downfield, there just wasn't really anything there. And we happened to see a ton of checkdowns on top of that, which you never know, right? Maybe he could have had something downfield and decided to check it down. And maybe there really wasn't anything. That could be a receiver thing. That could be a quarterback, maybe just not being aggressive enough thing. But given what we know about Drake, I don't think there's really any downfield opportunities that he's not going to try to take advantage of. So I think next week, I just want to see whether it's like a kind of a mix up in the personnel where it's receivers that he has more of that big playability with, or whatever it is. I just like to see a bit more explosiveness. Now, granted, this is a young offense. It's an offense that's still learning this new Josh McDaniel system, and they're going up against a veteran defense with a lot of guys that are already familiar with the system being put in place, or at least, as Robert Spillane said, like they've been in so many different spots where it's just kind of like more like a different language than it is being a player who doesn't have a ton of NFL experience, and it really seeming like a whole philosophical lesson when you're learning a new system. So I just want to see a little bit more explosiveness and a little bit more of Drake Maye being able to capitalize on what he does best. And of course, minimal turnovers, not the worst thing in the world. I said it with Jacoby last year, I remember, where there were some interceptions he had where you're like, I'm not that mad because he's really trying to put them in some tight windows. So yeah, just a bit more efficiency, fewer turnovers, and fewer kind of spray misses from these quarterbacks. The spray misses is the biggest thing. I just want to see it really on the receivers in places where they can get yards after catch on that more consistent basis.
No, for sure. I'm with you. I think, again, it's good to see. There were even a couple where, like last week, a couple of the turnovers were batted balls, quick mistake, not necessarily on him. They end up in the defense's hands. There were a couple opportunities for that to happen the other day as well. They just weren't actually turned over. They end up hitting the ground. So, I will say the offensive output from the two practices we've seen haven't been great. It's been shaky. And we heard that Thursday's practice last week after the 4 interception day was clinical and much better and firing on all cylinders. But I don't want to say it's kind of hard to believe that. I don't mean that. I believe that everybody who has heard things from that practice is telling the truth, but we still want to see it with our own eyes to be able to kind of report something else like that out and to be able to, I guess, know that they've continued to improve the offense from last season. But it is also super early. Like, again, we're talking here on May 30th, and I hate that we always feel like we have to caveat that, but we don't want this show to be the everything Patriots stink, everything's terrible show. Like, what it's happening, that it's not great, and there's room for improvement, but ultimately, we of course believe that they're hopefully going to hit their stride soon, but it's so early in camp. It's so early in the offseason program with a new head coach, a young quarterback, a new OC, that there's going to be some bumps in the road. Defense is mostly going to win these OTA sessions anyway because of the inability to extend the play from the pocket, the inability to run block and pass block and not just have a sack call, things like that. So not sounding the alarms just yet, but certainly we want to see a little bit more from the offense.